All right, welcome back to another episode of All Automotive. I'm your host, Matt Clausen. And in today's episode, we're talking about automotive myths or automotive misconceptions. What are they? What's a myth? It's something that is related to the automotive industry, which is not true, and people use it all the time and think it is true. So it's an actual myth. Things that just in the automotive industry we've come to think is a commonplace thing, and it's not anymore. And today we're going to talk about a couple of these things, and I want to start the show off with, you should change your oil every 3,000 miles. Well, you know, I hear this all the time, and back in the day, and when I say back in the day, you know, back in the 70s, 80s, you know, maybe early part of the 90s, before we had synthetic oil, you know, that was kind of the truth, and that was, you know, what we've been conditioned to. But, and maybe, you know, a myth isn't really a good thing for this, but it's kind of a misconception to me anymore, because today's cars are manufactured so much better than they were in those days. And also the oil formulations are so much better. We've got so many different types of oils out there. Some of them are for marketing and want you to use their oil if you've got higher mileage, and they want you to use their oil because it will last the longest. But there is oils and oil filters that are designed to go more than 3,000 miles. And there are oil filters and oil that's, you know, really only designed to go 3,000 miles. And you can still do that if it makes you feel comfortable and makes you feel warm and fuzzy inside. However, it's, you know, the vehicles have been developed to run these types of oil that's recommended for the vehicle. You know, in my I have a 2015 Chevy Silverado, and gee whiz, you know, General Motors says that this thing should take a full synthetic 0W20, and that I can go according to my owner's manual. That's the thing that's in the glove box that, you know, the sales guy told you that you probably should read through. Well, you could read through it if you really wanted to know exactly what type of oil and what your vehicle manufacturer recommends. Now, manufacturers do have oil life monitors, and some of them are very, very sophisticated. And I know that GM uses a oil life monitor that runs off of combustion events, which means it literally monitors how many times the pistons fire in the engine. So, and it takes that as a percentage, and the percentage will come down as the vehicle runs and as that you put mileage on your vehicle. So the oil life reminder light will come on at around 10%, depending on which vehicle you have. In most General Motors vehicles, once you get to about 10%, it'll say change oil soon. Okay, so another thing that comes up, and a lot of things that I have explained to customers, is that this doesn't mean that your oil level is low. It just means that the life has run out. The lifeblood of that oil, the ability of that oil to lubricate and to do its job in life has come to an end. So, and you need to change it as soon as possible. It's not something that's you need to get right in the next day or so. It's something that you need to do for, you know, a week or two goes by. It's something good to do before it gets to zero, really. You know, nothing really bad's going to happen, because I've seen a lot of customers come in and they're on zero, and they've been on zero for a long time. It's way overdue, and you really don't want to do that, because the ability for the oil to lubricate it and do its job has significantly been reduced. So in my experience with this oil life monitor, and I've run this oil life monitor in actually both my vehicles. I have a 2007 Impala, the SS version. If you know me, you know I like to go fast and have fast things. So anyway, I have a 2007 Impala SS, and I use the oil life monitor on that one. And I also use it on my Silverado. And if you've got a Ford or Mazda or Nissan, they all have oil life monitors. Most of the vehicle manufacturers have an oil life monitor. But getting back to the General Motors part of it, let's just say now it gets down to 10%. It says change oil soon. It doesn't mean my oil is low. It just means I need to change my oil. So I've monitored that, and my truck will go around 7,000 miles before it gets to 10%, depending on if I'm using the remote start in the morning to warm it up, or if I'm using the remote start in the summertime to cool off the interior with the air conditioning on, or if I'm sitting and idling. I have a 20-minute commute to my shop, so it's not a huge thing, and I live in the country, but I do drive on I-94 Speedway back and forth, which hopefully, is going to get repaved, and so we'll hopefully get some better mileage so we're not bouncing around. Anyway, so again, the oils are manufactured way better than they used to be, and the oil filters are developed way better than they used to be. Even the ones that are not rated for synthetic oil, they do last and they do work really well. If you're using conventional oil and you're using a conventional style oil filter, yes, probably 3,000 to 5,000 miles is going to be your limit. Because I was actually talking to one of the representatives from the popular oil filter manufacturers, and this person was telling me that, if we cut them open, or we took this one apart and took this one apart, we'd significantly see the difference between the two. And you can, if you took the oil filter that is our base oil filter that we use for the base sort of oil changes, and I say base, and the 3,000 mile ones, they are less robust in the fact that they don't trap all the dirt that they would if you had one that had more filter pleats. So if you took them both apart, the one that's developed for synthetic oil, it's got more pleats, it's better, it filters better, it actually lasts longer so that you can run that oil more than 3,000 miles. So we do offer at my facility a full synthetic oil change by AMSOIL, which could go up to their signature series. They say could go up to 25,000 miles with the correct oil filter. Now they sell their oil filters, and they're primarily a Wix XP oil filter, which is the extra performance oil filter that you get from Wix. So if you're using synthetic oil, I would consider a better oil filter. Don't just go with the one that's least expensive. If it's a vehicle that was manufactured prior to 1980, then okay, you can use whatever you think is necessary for your hot rod or your other vehicle like that. But we want to go with whatever the manufacturer recommends for the oil for optimal performance and optimal fuel mileage. I mean, fuel, we talked about it in the last episode, and we're talking about it still. These gas prices are still high. We're still trying to find ways to save money at the pump. And one of the ways is to use the correct oil weight in your engine because it gets better mileage. It's proven. If you want to look it up, you can. I'm sure it's out there. So that myth right there, anymore, 3,000 miles, 3 months, 3,000 miles, not so true anymore. The next myth that somebody said this to me a couple of months ago, and I was kind of chuckled at it. And I know that some of these are actually funny to me, and that's why I'm telling you is some of these myths are just, I hear people say them and I kind of just shake my head. I try to be nice and explain things and not, debunk their lifelong theory of getting gas in the morning will save you money because once you get it in your tank, it'll expand and there'll be more of it. Okay, well, that's not true either, because if you can fill up at any time of the day. It doesn't matter if it's bright and early in the morning because the gas is cooler coming out of the ground. Maybe. Well, they put these tanks in pretty deep in the ground. And if you've ever held the metal part of the pump, you know how they got plastic covers over them? That's on there for a reason because it gets really cold coming out of there. So you could actually grab onto some of the metal parts of the hose right there by the nozzle. And it gets really cold because it comes out of the ground, down in the ground. The gasoline really gets pretty cold in temperature. So once it goes into your tank, it's still cold. It's still coming out of the ground. And you could be on an 80, 90 degree day in the summertime and fill up your tank and it's coming out of the ground. It's cold. It's still cold. So that's not something that has any value. Yes, gasoline expands in heat. We've all seen it. If you fill up one of your plastic gas containers, and I don't know, last summer I did this, and the lawnmower ran out of gas in the middle of the lawn. We've all done that. The riding lawnmower ran out of gas in the middle of the lawn. I wasn't paying attention. Well, my new lawnmower has a gas gauge, so I don't have to worry about that. But anyway, the one I did have prior to that just had a little see-through thing, and you could, I was pushing the limit. I didn't feel like driving all the way back to the barn, shutting it off, getting off of it. It was Saturday. Anyway, so filled up the gas tank on the lawnmower, and there was still some gas in the can. So I just walked the can away from where I was mowing and kept going. So it sat in the hot sun, and I come back, and I had put the vent cover on and put the lid on it, and it was like, the can had just like ballooned up, and I was like, oh my gosh. So, immediately I popped the vent, and it's just like, psh, all the pressure that built up because the gas did expand, and then the fumes that came out of there. So you gotta be careful with that. And then, so that told me, hey, that was not a very good idea, setting that out in the sun. Maybe I should have known better. But anyway, I had half the front yard left to do, and in a hurry, had other things to do that day. Blah 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 blah. Anyway, so yes, gas does expand in the heat, but your fuel system on your vehicle and the emission system on this vehicle keeps that gas at an even keel. So when it does expand, it's got a system on it which keeps that pressure in the tank at an even keel, so that it's not ballooning up your gas tank in your car and causing problems. And that system's called the evap system, and it also takes those fumes off the tank and runs them up to the engine, and has a valve that opens and closes at certain times to take those fumes off, so they don't go out into the atmosphere, number one, and number two, it helps for fuel mileage and so forth. So filling up your gas tank first thing in the morning, rushing to the gas station because the gas is cooler, and then once you get it in your car and it warms up, there's gonna be more of it. No, that's not something that is true. So the next one that I want to talk about is premium gas. And I know in the last episode we talked about E85 and its benefits and what it means for you if you have a flex fuel vehicle. But, both of my cars, or both of my vehicles that I drive on a daily basis, my Silverado is a 6.2 V8 engine, which according to my owner's manual and according to the sticker on the side of the gas door, it says I have to use premium fuel. And the reason for that is because the 6.2 Chevrolet LS engine, especially the VIN J, on my truck has higher compression than the other V8s and requires the premium fuel. So higher compression means, you need to run a premium fuel. And again, the owner's manual is in your glove box. It's the thing that the big fat book that's in there. Just go to the index, look up fuel, flip through really quick. It's probably a 1-page thing. You can read down through it really quick and find out that says, and I looked it up myself before I started the podcast, and it says if you have a 6.2 liter V8 VIN code J, you need to run premium fuel. And my Impala does that too, and because it's a V8, it requires the premium fuel. However, both of these vehicles will run on regular 87 octane. It just won't. They're not designed for it, and it may cause some spark knock because the compression's high. It needs to have the higher octane to explode the fuel correctly. And we could get into that, but that's not a podcast for a later date, maybe, let's say. So consult your owner's manual. What kind of fuel does your vehicle require? If you have a higher performance vehicle, most likely it's going to recommend premium fuel. So take a look at that. I mean, that's something that you could do some research on. And, I get questions all the time about, well, then why do they make like a mid-grade, a plus, like the 89 octane? Well, Plus is if you want to run that, you can. It gives you a couple of octane ratings higher. It's not really a benefit most of the time, but it could give you potentially better fuel mileage. Potentially, it could run smoother. Again, it's something. It's an alternative that I've gone to on that old Impala. That hey, $4.99 for premium, and I can get it for maybe 50 cents less, and it's not that different. It's some of it is marketing, and also it's another misconception which we could go on and on for at a later date. But as far as getting premium and putting premium in your vehicle that only requires 87 octane and hoping to get better performance out of it, I believe you're just going to be spending that extra money for the extra octane, which really isn't going to give you much more in performance. So let's skip out on that. And most people that I talk to, I just go with whatever's the least expensive. So, and sometimes that's a good idea, sometimes it's not a good idea. But again, just consult your owner's manual and see what's best for your vehicle. Another misconception, and because I have a truck, I see this quite often, and we go on road trips, and you're here and there, and the rest of my family lives in the Cleveland area, and we have the opportunity to have a 4-hour drive to get to them and see them. So we oftentimes will see people driving with their pickup trucks with the tailgate down, trying to attempt to get better fuel mileage. So there's the myth right there. The driving with your tailgate down will give you better fuel mileage if you own a pickup truck. So the idea is there, and I believe everybody thinks that the air coming over the top of the truck, it goes into the open part of the bed and creates turbulence, which slows you down. And the tailgate being down allows that air to flow up over the cab and through the tailgate or into the bed of the truck and then out without having any trouble. Well, what happens is with that tailgate down, it actually potentially extends the end of the vehicle. And I think Mythbusters did an episode on this, or this was in one of their episodes, and they debunked it as well. The best way to do it is with the tailgate up, which actually creates a vacuum or a lower pressure area in that square box, so the air will actually flow right over it. And the tailgate being down doesn't create any turbulence off the end or the back of the vehicle. So if you have, my truck has a topper on it, which it weighs quite a bit. So I think I'm losing a little bit of fuel mileage having that extra weight with that. It's kind of like offsets it. The streamlining of having that camper topper on it, I call it, or my fiberglass top on my truck actually lets the wind just go right around and does its thing. But I get some extra turbulence from it coming around the sides and then swirling around the back. And so it's all in, we can't put our vehicles in the wind tunnel, but I believe that that show, the Mythbusters, they debunk that as well. So the best way to do it is to leave your tailgate up, and most of us have newer trucks. There's my backup camera is in the tailgate handle bezel. So with it down, it's not, there's no benefit from that. I mean, you're taking that out of the question there. So, and most of the new style trucks have the camera up in that handle area. So the benefit there would be to put your tonneau cover on or get a camper topper like I've got. That pretty much trades off. There's a little bit of gain if you put a tonneau cover on. I didn't see much gain in that, so there wasn't a huge issue there. So now another car misconception or myth that I hear quite frequently is that your vehicle battery is going to charge after you get your vehicle jump started. So say your battery is dead and somebody comes along and says, hey, I'll give you a jump, and you give them a jump, and then you think that your battery is going to recharge. It is not. It is not going to do that. The only thing that's going to do is potentially damage or hurt your alternator I've seen actual alternator death occur because we jumpstart the vehicle and we let it sit there and run at an idle. And normally around here, this happens in the wintertime, but even if it's in the summertime or in a warmer climate, we've got fan blowers going, we've got air conditioner that comes on, we've got the radio that comes on, we've got all these electrical demands on the electrical system. And so the alternator is 105 amps, let's say, and it's maxing itself out. It's at 100 amps. And because you immediately turn the fan on and turn the air conditioner on to cool everything down, and it's like, and you've disconnected the jumping vehicle, and now that alternator has to go from the jumping vehicle was helping the charging system, let's say, and so now that alternator has to work extra hard to keep that level up to where the running charging voltage is. So it's good in the temporary that you got jump started and everything is fine. However, we potentially have a problem with that battery because, number one, it didn't start your vehicle because it didn't have enough reserve capacity to start, or we've got a dead cell. And what I mean by that, there's several different cells in the battery. Normally it's 6. So you may have a dead cell. So think about that as far as your engine is running. You got 8 cylinders, or you have 6 cylinders, let's say. Let's make it easy. There's 6 cylinders and you have one of them that's not running. So you have 5 out of the 6, and it's less power and less acceleration, and it runs rough. And okay, so you have a cell that's gone bad, or that battery is most likely weak, or something else has happened to where we've overrode the headlights, or we left the door open, or most vehicles have a battery rundown protection so that it will shut off the accessories. And I say that inside the car, it'll shut off the dome lights, the overhead mirrors in the visors, and so forth. It'll shut the convenient lights off, the interior lights and so forth. It'll shut those off. But if you've overrode the headlights and turned the headlights on, or you got your 4-ways on, say you got a flat tire and you had the 4-ways on for quite a long time, and you try to start it and it's dead, and then you jump it. And so your battery is, let's say, okay prior to having this issue, to where you've left an accessory on or a headlights on or what have you, and that's caused the battery to go dead. People, you still need to charge your battery, because if your battery's in a low state, that alternator is charging at maximum output the entire time you're driving it back to wherever you're going or to your house. So I would recommend, if you had your vehicle jump started, to take it to a service garage and make sure that the battery is good, your charging system is still good, you didn't kill your alternator. And also, if your battery is in fact just low, then we can charge it up and get it charged up for you. If you're a do-it-yourselfer and you got your battery charger at home, trickle charge it, whether it's overnight at the lowest setting, replace that energy at a slower rate, usually helps out a lot. We have higher rate charging battery chargers at our facilities to help diagnose electrical systems and also charge batteries faster so that we can diagnose charging systems quicker. But if you've run your battery down as a result of leaving the lights on or running the radio while somebody was in the shopping center while the vehicle was not on, that's an indication to me that maybe your battery is getting kind of weak and we should check it, because sometimes you should be able to leave your headlights on for 10 or 15 minutes without the battery failing or running all the way completely dead, because it shouldn't. It should have enough energy to let that happen for that short period of time. Now, it's not going to keep your 4-ways going for hours. 15, 20 minutes you're running your hazard lights because you're on the side of the road, your battery shouldn't die. So what I would recommend, if you did have a jump-started vehicle, you're not going to charge that battery up. And sure, when you get home, you shut it off, you start back up, oh yeah, okay, everything's fine. You've essentially, brought that battery back to a state to where it can do that. But anytime a battery goes dead, it unfortunately weakens that battery's life and also weakens it. So you want to make sure that you're either taking it to a repair facility or calling us up and saying, hey, I had to jumpstart it. Can you guys check the charging system? Which is a simple thing for us to do. I encourage you to, if you don't have a battery charger at home that has a low setting, a trickle charge setting of 2 amps or so, or a battery maintainer, then, call the shop that you deal with and say, hey, this is what happened, and that's what's going on. All right. Well, those are the myths that I thought were the most popular ones, and hopefully throughout this episode you got the idea of, if you hear these things and you don't know, just give me a call. I can probably tell you exactly what's going on. I mean, I've seen several of these myths out there that there were some that, and I did my own little due diligence and Googled some of these, and there was just, there was so many of them that, and there was a couple of them I really didn't hear and I had never heard of. And, but these are the ones that I've heard of, and actually spurred this episode with a customer conversation that I had earlier this week. And it was the one with, the battery thing, and jump in your vehicle and your battery's going to get recharged. And it just really isn't the case. And I wanted to make sure that he was aware of that. So I did, speak with him at length about the charging system and how it works. And anyway, those were my favorite car myths. So what was yours? Hopefully you got something out of this episode. I do appreciate you guys listening. All right, well, that's going to do it for another episode of All Automotive. I hope you got something out of this episode, the car myths. What's your favorite car myth or misconception that you'd argue with somebody about? Hey, don't forget to give us a like, follow us, leave a review. Thanks for listening to All Automotive.